Welcome to another episode of BHP Book Club. I am your host, Kelly Morgan. Today I'm speaking with author Thomas Russo Jr. He's written an amazing book called There Are No Politics in Heaven. He tells about his journey and how he himself is a recovering politician and how he has his wonderful coaching program called Vortex of Excellence. I can't wait for you to meet him. I'm so glad that he's a member of the book club. Let's just get right to it. Welcome to the book club, author Thomas Russo Jr. Thomas, thank you so much for being a part of the book club and being on the podcast. Welcome.
It's great to be with you. Thank you for the invitation.
You're very welcome. I'm excited to talk to you about your book, There Are No Politics in Heaven, because I was really thinking about the title, and that is such a true statement. There probably are no politics.
Let's hope not. Otherwise, we're all doomed. So.
But I was curious to how you came about to write this book, because it is nonfiction, right?
Yeah. So originally, the book started out as a workshop. I had gone through, some personal challenges and dealt with my demons about 5-6 years ago. And I said, I've had quite an interesting journey, so I wanted to share that story with other people. So originally I wrote the outline of a workshop. And when I showed the outline to individuals, they all thought it was really good, but everybody said the same thing, which was, did you ever think about writing a book? And I said, who wants to read a book about a recovering politician, right? That kind of seemed odd. But to a person, they all said the same thing. So I said, all right, there's a reason why everybody is saying this to me, so maybe I need to take heed. And, lo and behold, the sections of the workshop converted almost chapter for chapter to the book. And it took me about 6 months to write it. But I just felt compelled to tell my story, and in the hopes that somebody, at least one person, would find some, peace and comfort and solitude, knowing that we all go through challenges. A lot of us have been successful, but it's external while we're suffering internally. And so when I came up with the title, which is, it's a fun title, There Are No Politics in Heaven, there's a duality to the title. One is obviously, hopefully a factual statement that there's no politics in heaven. But since politics was my drug of choice, that title is for me. That title was me telling Tom, the inner child, that politics, the thing I valued the most, the thing that I put on a pedestal, the thing that I strived for in terms of title and adulation and affection and all those superficial things, that doesn't exist in heaven. So I needed to recalibrate my thinking about what was important. And the title is a dual purpose, but it's as much for me as it is for the audience themselves.
So you had said a recovering politician. What is that exactly? Tell me what that is, because that piqued my curiosity.
Yeah, so the subtitle of the book is A Recovering Politician's Guide to Christian Living. So no joke, I, as a fat kid growing up, or obese kid growing up, I was bullied for most of my childhood. So it wasn't until I lost 100 pounds by starving myself in high school that people gave me that adulation and affection and attention that I was craving for most of my childhood, because I had the opposite, right? I had the bullying and all that other stuff. So the good, obviously it was a healthier lifestyle, which now it's funny. Nowadays you'd call it intermittent fasting. I just did my own version of it 30 years ago. But the sad thing was that by losing the weight and getting that positive attention from people, I started to crave it like it was a drug. And so it was never enough, right? And it really was like a drug. I always needed the next high. I needed the next group. I needed the next person. Sometimes I needed the next female, right? So I needed female attention in terms of relational aspect of politics. And, it was good that I went into politics at a young age, because all these years later, I'm still involved, although more as an appointed official than an elected official. But the downside was, the worst thing you could do is have somebody with low self-esteem go into politics. because politics by nature is an artificial bubble, and you don't realize it when you're in the bubble, because you think, wow, man, everybody loves me, right? I mean, they're voting for me, they're donating, they're coming to fundraisers, they're putting my name on their car, on their lawn. Like, this is great. It's like a trip, right? But you don't realize, I mean, you realize when you lose an election and everybody's gone, and you realize how fleeting it is. So yeah, I'm a recovering politician because, you know, I was elected in 2 different towns, and the second experience wasn't very good for me emotionally or spiritually, and I walked away from it. I didn't run for another term in the town I live in currently, and that's when I realized politics was my drug, and I can't go near that drug because it didn't bring out the best in me. So I consider myself a recovering politician. Politics was a part of my life, but it's not a part of my future.
Politics has a bad rap with being corrupt and things like that. So do you think a Christian, a true Christian, somebody who says they're Christian and holds all the values of a Christian, can be a politician?
I think you have to go into the world of politics, which is a very rough and tumble arena. You have to be grounded before you go into the arena, because if you're not, it will eat you alive. And that's what I learned was, like, if I ran for office today, I'd be a very different person than I was 20 years ago, or 10 years ago, or 5 years ago. So can a person who's grounded in faith, and honestly, not just Christian faith, but any faith belief system, could they run for office and serve with, you know, character and integrity and dignity and do a good job? Absolutely. And I've met a lot of those people, and thank God a lot of those people were my mentors over the years. And I appreciate them. The older I get and the more I do as an appointed official, I reflect upon those elected officials that they were really good public servants. Like, it wasn't an ego trip for them. But you have to go into that world of politics, eyes wide open, knowing what you're getting into. And I hate to say it, but I think, and, you know, I obviously, you know, we'll talk about other things besides the book, but I do teach and I do consulting, and I spend a lot of time with young people that are similar in age to my daughters. They're college age. And a lot of them are me 20, 30 years ago, right? They want to get involved in campaigns, they want to volunteer, they want to run for office. And I always feel like I'm a dream killer because here I am kind of giving them the other side, but I try not to dissuade them from getting involved, because we do need good people to get involved in government, because if you don't have good people, you're going to have the opposite. And we've seen that, you know, regardless of party affiliation. I think on both sides, you can see very honorable people that have served with, you know, integrity and distinction. And then you can see people that have done the opposite. So I encourage people at all ages and backgrounds to get involved, but just do it with eyes wide open and do it with integrity and with purpose. And don't do it as a career. You know, like what I do full time, I'm a bureaucrat, right? I run a town full time. That's my career. And, you know, that's my education and training and all of that. It's very different than somebody who runs for office and then just runs every 4 years because they want to be an elected official for 20, 30, 40, 50 years. Public service as an elected official, it was never intended for that. It wasn't, you know what I mean? You need turnover. You need more women getting involved. You need communities of color to be better represented in communities, and members of different, you know, LGBTQ communities and such. Like, you know, the era of the old white male in running government is over. Like, it needs to be more diverse, because through the diversity and the collaboration is where you get really great ideas about how to problem solve. And in the end, whether you're an elected official or an appointed official or involved, it's about problem solving. It's about making communities better today than they were yesterday and better tomorrow than they are today. So I'm still hopeful, and I do try to impart that wisdom and that experience to the next generation to say, look, if you're going to go into politics, just be smart about it. Like I would tell anybody going into any career, like, understand the challenges and the pitfalls as much as the opportunities too, because like any career, it's a mixed bag.
Yeah, I would agree. So it sounds too like the book really talks about mental health, and I see people more willing to come out and talk about mental health. And this sounds like the book probably touches upon that because it's a huge problem in this country. And so is that part of the reason too why you decided to put the book out there? What's your take on it, Thomas?
Yeah, so it's interesting. When I was writing the book, I didn't really recognize the mental health challenges that I experienced as a child growing up. And I think it's very common for a lot of us that a lot of the baggage and the garbage that we deal with as adults carry from childhood. There's some wound, there's some issue, and it's unfortunate because it could be, a mother or father, it could be a relative, it could be a community person, and there could just be something that was said or done, and it just changes our trajectory emotionally, and we really don't recognize the patterns of the inappropriate behavior or beliefs until it manifests in a divorce or in a relationship with a child or in the workplace. So when I was writing the book, I was like, wow, this story isn't just about, the fat kid getting bullied or the politics. And it was strange because when I got to the middle of the book is when I was at my writing about my rock bottom part. And that's when, I ran for the second time in politics. And that's when I started to have the issues with the anxiety and the depression and the thoughts of suicide. And I was like, wow, I didn't really look at it in that vein until I started writing the book. And I said, wow, this really did impact me at that level. And I was it was chapter 7 of the book. It was an emotional chapter for me to write about because I felt like I was exposing myself to everybody writing about that. And to this day, it's sometimes difficult for me because there's still a stigma, unfortunately, about people talking about mental health issues in this country. And it's sad because the pandemic has only exacerbated those issues in people. So whether it's mental health challenges through the pandemic, financial or health or other things, relationships, I say this all the time. Everybody's a wreck. Everybody emotionally has been impacted the last 2 years with what we've been dealing with. Some of it was the 2020 presidential election. A lot of it's been the pandemic, just the divisiveness and just things just seem off kilter to people. And so the book has helped a lot of people because though their drug of choice might not have been politics, it might have been affairs or drugs or alcohol or gambling. Or it could be just challenges that they've experienced because of their childhood that they need to seek counseling or they need to seek some, medical treatment, and I did a 5-day intensive and I did counseling and I really, looked at my life from a very different prism 6-7 years ago because I wanted to know why I was the way I was and how I could make my life better. Because when everybody thinks your life is perfect and, you're ready to kill yourself, something's off.
Yeah, something's definitely off.
Right. And, thank God I had a lot to live for. And I found spirituality was my answer. It's not maybe the answer for everybody, but for me, spirituality was the thing that got me to a better place. And so now when I coach people, I try to find that motivator and that opportunity for them to have growth in their life because, to answer your question, there's a lot of people suffering with mental health issues, and unfortunately, a lot of people are not addressing them. I mean, the third leading cause of death for individuals 15 to 24 is suicide. It's true. That's true. That's a New Jersey statistic, but that's countrywide. So if our youngest population is looking at suicide as their only alternative, then you know what, we got a long-term problem because that means we're not really providing the right foundation for our young people to be comfortable in their own skin, to deal with certain challenges and issues, and then to help them become mature, successful adults. And that's where I see that we're losing a lot of people is at that young stage. And, looking back, that's probably when my issues started with the bullying and everything else, right? It was, ages 8 through 16 for me. And I don't want to lose any more people. So yeah, the book is definitely talks about mental health challenges and how spirituality can be one of the things that helps people get to the other side.
Yeah, you talk about faith, fear, and finding your purpose. And I think that if young people could do that sooner in life, then it would really help later in life. I
Right.
think, I think a lot of young people, as you said, are lost. And I remember growing up, not really knowing faith, fear, or purpose, right? Nobody really explained. It's not until later in life that you kind of start to figure that out. And some of us come out okay. Some of us don't. Some of us need somebody maybe to talk to tell us that it's okay to feel however we feel.
Right. And, to the career point, I was blessed that my parents were very supportive, even though they weren't too thrilled with the politics, honestly, especially my mother. But in general, they were very supportive of my career decisions and the things that I wanted to pursue because they knew public service was important to me. I get frustrated and I cringe when I hear parents talk to their children about, their son or daughter wants to pursue a career in a certain field, and they're very dismissive because it's either not prestigious enough, or you won't make any money, or you can't make any money. And my eyes come out of my head because I'm like, if you're good at something and you're passionate about it, the money will come. And so I actually do a lot of career coaching with the people that I work with in my consulting business. And I always tell them that everybody's been given a gift and everybody has a passion. And you need to figure out how to monetize that and make your passion your profession. It's not that hard. The hardest step is figuring out, what do you enjoy? Like, what do you love to do? What makes the time go by that you're not staring at your watch or staring at the clock? Like me talking about my book, or me talking about my faith, or me teaching, like those are things I wouldn't give up for the world, right? And I knew my passion was for public service when I was a kid, so I was fortunate, but I was an anomaly. Like I wasn't typical in that regard. But even if people don't know at a young age what they want to do, I think as adults, whether we're related to them or not, we need to encourage people and be uplifting and say, look, let's figure out a way to make that a career. Or some things are more for the career, and some things might be more for volunteerism and community building or other. So I think we need to speak truth and life into people and words of encouragement, because I think everybody has been given a gift and a passion, and then we just need to help people figure out what to do with it.
So tell me about the Vortex of Excellence.
So after all of the pain that I went through, and it was a lot of pain, I started to find that there were a lot of common themes between my spiritual journey and the journey I went through in terms of traditional counseling and other kinds of conversations. So I started documenting and taking notes about what advice I was hearing and what seemed to resonate with me. And I basically, after all these years, I said, I think I'm sitting on some pretty cool information that I want to share with people. And so with my consulting business, I started using that information with my clients, and it resonated with them. And it really, at that point, it didn't have a name, but I was able to hone in on almost like a personal SWOT analysis of, okay, let's talk about your strengths and your weaknesses and your opportunities and your threats. It's a very common tool that we use in the corporate sector or in government or nonprofit, but most people never take the time or never really think about doing a SWOT analysis of themselves, because it almost sounds like kind of weird, like you think it more organizational. Mm-hmm. And so I turned that on its head, and I started doing that with individuals, and it was an eye-opener, and it always seemed to revolve around certain things. We talk about self-care, we're talking about romance, we're talking about career, volunteerism, the major things, health, whatever. The major things that we all deal with, or that we all want to have, great lives in those categories. And so I started creating this program it didn't have a name, because of the feedback I was getting from the clients and the people I was working with. So the Vortex of Excellence, which became the trademarked coaching program that I just launched this past week, is basically the combination of all of the wisdom and knowledge that I learned through the last 7 years of my journey, through the counseling and the coaching and the training that I've received from other people. And I tried to synthesize it down to a very simple, easy to understand level, where I come in and I work with people, whether it's an individual or a small group, and I help assess where they are in the different aspects of their life. And I broke it down into 8 different aspects. And what I do is I say, look, I'm not going to focus on where you're excelling right now. We're going to figure out what's the one area that's your weakest point right now that we can focus on, that we can, bring you up to the level you want to be at. Because I know a lot of people that are very bright, some family members and some friends, and they get stuck because they get overwhelmed by the totality of the things they want to change in their life. Their marriage isn't great. Their relationship with their kids isn't great. Their career isn't where they want it to be. And I mean, even just listening to them, I get overwhelmed because I'm an empath, and I sit here and I absorb a lot of what they're telling me, and I can feel the frustration and the sadness because they don't know where to begin. Right? So through my program, I teach them, you can't swallow the elephant whole here. You gotta tackle one thing at a time and get it to a point where you're comfortable and you're happy. And then you can move on to the next thing. And, a lot of people just don't have that patience. The society we live in, everything is instant gratification. And so people aren't used to spending, 30, 60, 90 days working on something and doing that kind of work. But if you want to see change occur in your life, the minimum amount of time you have to spend on something is 90 days. Like it's not going to happen overnight. So if people are fooling themselves if they think they can make change with their weight or their relationship and, in 10 days, 20 days, man, wouldn't life be so easy if we could just do that? I mean, I'd be 50 pounds less and my bank account would be 10 times bigger right now, but it's not happening. So I think people understand the message of the coaching and the training. I like doing the individual coaching. I like doing the small group. I do, speak at organizations too, and I kind of give them an overview of the program and my background. But it's fun for me because, to be candid, right? My full-time job is running a town, and I'm good at it, and I enjoy it. And I'm in my 14th year running the town of Newton in New Jersey, and I love it. But when I closed the door on politics several years ago, when I didn't run for re-election, that's when I got the teaching opportunities at the 3 universities. That's when I wrote the book. I've edited 3 books. I'm working on my 4th. I do the coaching and the consulting and the speaking. And it's all fun for me because I know my message resonates with people and people understand my enthusiasm and my just, I feel like I've been given a second chance in life. So I want to take advantage of that by helping other people. And the Vortex of Excellence is my way of giving back. And what's interesting about the program, one last thought, is I know too many people, and I was one of them, they spend their time trying to be perfect. And then that is such an unreasonable standard. And I know a lot of people put that standard on their kids with their grades and other things. And it's like, if perfection is your goal, you're doomed. We're not talking about running an Olympic race where you're going to get a 10, a score, okay, that happens. And it's a perfect score. But when we're talking about life, when we're talking about dealing with human beings, and we're talking about relationships with spouses and children, we're talking about careers, and we're talking about volunteerism, and we're talking about, dealing with tragedies like cancer or things like people were going through with nor'easters and hurricanes and losing their homes and just, in COVID, right? I mean, there's just like so many things that we deal with in life. So I teach people to pursue excellence and not perfection. And it's a relief for them that it's about doing your best. It's about excelling, but it's not about hitting some arbitrary mark that doesn't exist and that's elusive. So I love the program and it's worked for people. And I enjoy just meeting new people and just empowering them to live better lives.
So how do you get the program to somebody? Is it online? Is it in person? Is it written down? How do you do that?
Yeah, so I just launched my new website, thomasrussojr.com, and as part of that, people can go on there and they can read about the program and reach out to me. They can text me, my cell phone number's on there. They can email me. They can do the contact page on the website. And the one thing I found out through my journey was there are a lot of programs that will sell you, the workbook. They'll give, and we all do it too, and I'm guilty of it too. We give away free copies of books or we give away chapters, right? And I do the same thing. But there's really no accountability and there's no consistency with that. It's like a one-shot deal, right? And it helps, but I don't know if it necessarily has permanency and it has longevity to it. So what I wanted to do when I got into the coaching was I wanted to be a coach who was accessible and reasonable in what I was charging so that I could impact more lives and that people would have an accountability partner. Because as much as I love Tony Robbins or John Gordon or Darren Hardy or Dr. Tony Evans or Greg Laurie or other people that I admire in the speaking world or in the faith world, I'm probably not getting their cell number and I'm probably not texting them after this conversation with you tonight. Having said that, I make it a point to give people my email address and my cell number that I work with because I want that back and forth. Because there's going to be days where they're going to be on top of the mountain and there are going to be days where they want to jump off the cliff, like no joke, like because life is going to be up and down. And I love walking with people because if it wasn't for people that walked with me, I wouldn't be here today. So whether it was my pastor, whether it was my counselor, whether it was close friends that I could confide in and that could guide me, mentors I met through my church with my wife, like they guided me about how to be a better man, about how to be a better Christian, about how to look at life from a different prism to have greater success and inner peace. And that's what I give people when I do the coaching. So I love being an accountability partner because I think it really helps people be successful in whatever they're struggling with.
Yeah, I would agree. I think you hit the nail on the head when you said the thing about patience, because that resonates with me because I work on patience every day because I'm not a patient person. I like instant gratification too. And so that's one of the things that I work on because it helps me be a better person when I'm just patient. And that's in any situation. And so it's one of those things that I think anytime you can work on yourself to try to be a better person, no matter how small that is, it's gonna take you strides before, where you thought you couldn't even go off of one small thing. And you're right, you have to start somewhere, but you can't do everything all at once. And I think that's what we all try to do. We try to tackle all of these things. They say it's called multitasking, which necessarily isn't a good thing because they say you don't get anything done when you multitask.
And you don't really focus. As much as I'd like to do my laundry and take my dog out for a walk and get on the treadmill, it doesn't really work. So at some point, and people wonder how I do. I run a town. I do the coaching and the consulting. I teach. I take classes at Harvard. I'm a busy guy. I'm married. I have 2 daughters. I have 3 pets. The mortgage, the whole thing. And people are like, I tell people what I do, and they go, like, Tom, where do you find the time? And I go, I don't know. I said, I sleep 6 hours a night. I plan my day. Like I'm intentional about the things I want to accomplish. Sometimes days go off the rails, especially when you run a town. Very easily goes off the rails with dealing with residents and taxpayers and the like. But I just find that being intentional and purposeful and prayerful, I start my day with prayer. I end my day with prayer, because I'm grateful for the blessings that I have. I tend to get more things accomplished than the average person, but I avoid multitasking as much as I can. Like when I'm talking to you right now, I'm not thinking about Newton or when I'm teaching the next semester, like I'm focusing on you in the interview. But when I'm at work tomorrow running a town, I'm not thinking about my book.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, because I have to lock into where I am and who I am and what I'm doing. And it seems to enhance my productivity. So it's almost counterintuitive to the people that think, I'm so cool because I got multiple phones and I'm on social media and I'm doing a TikTok and I'm multitasking and I'm on the phone and I'm texting. Yeah, but you're really not getting anything out of it. Like you're doing the tasks potentially, but you're not getting anything out of them.
Right. You're not present.
You're not present.
Right?
You're not in the moment.
You're not in the moment. And that's really important. Thomas, thank you so much for being on the podcast. It has been a wonderful discussion. The book, again, what is the name of the book?
There Are No Politics in Heaven.
And it is available on Amazon?
Correct. And through my website, thomasrussojr.com.
And there they can find out more about the Vortex of Excellence as well?
Yes, they can contact me through the website. They can go to my social media pages, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. And, I always love meeting new people, having conversations. And if I can't help them, perhaps I know people that can. But to me, we're all in this together. And you get 2 choices. You get love and fear. I think we need to, spread more love and to be kind to one another and really be supportive and uplift everyone. And that's my purpose, and I hope people reach out to me because I'd love to have those conversations.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for being a part of the book club. I really enjoyed meeting you and speaking with you.
Likewise. Thank you again.
Thank you for listening to another episode of BHP Book Club. I just wrapped up with Thomas Russo Jr., and we talked about his book, There Are No Politics in Heaven, and his program, The Vortex of Excellence. You can learn more about Thomas, his book, and his program at thomasrussojr.com. If you are an author and would like to promote your book and be a member of the book club, just go to brightheadedpublishing.com, go to the contact page, drop me a note, and you could be the next author promoting their book on the podcast. Thank you everyone for listening. I could not do it without you. I really appreciate you. Until next time, keep writing.